A couple Democratic senators are fighting to shift the Overton window to the left in Washington, D.C., and this is a great example of that. Bernie Sanders to announce plan to guarantee every American a job. Okay, this is something that in decades hasn't really been brought up in modern politics. Like Medicare for All, for example, is something that even though it wasn't discussed often, it was still discussed, and certainly policy wonks still knew about it, even in the years when it was kind of on the back burner. But this is one of those policy proposals that's just been totally absent for decades in American politics. But it's not totally unprecedented. In fact, all you have to do is go back to FDR and his idea of a new Bill of Rights, an economic Bill of Rights, and this is something that he proposed. So this is like a New Deal Democrat, social democratic approach to politics. And, you know, it's kind of right in line with all of Bernie Sanders' other proposals, and it's just one that hasn't been discussed a lot in modern days. Now, to be fair, believe it or not, you had Cory Booker and Kirsten Gillibrand discuss different versions of a similar idea, a job guarantee, but naturally Bernie Sanders' proposal is more comprehensive than anything that anybody else is talking about. And that's even given the fact that we have limited details thus far on his plan. But let me tell you what the Washington Post says here. They say Senator Bernie Sanders will announce a plan for the federal government to guarantee a job paying $15 an hour and health care benefits to every American worker, quote, who wants or needs one, embracing the kind of large-scale government works project that Democrats have shied away from in recent decades. Sanders' job guarantee would fund hundreds of projects throughout the United States aimed at addressing priorities such as infrastructure, caregiving, the environment, education, and other goals. Under the job guarantee, every American would be entitled to a job under one of these projects or receive job training to be able to do so, according to an early draft of the proposal. A representative from Sanders' office said they had not yet done a cost estimate for the plan or decided how it would be funded, saying they were still crafting the proposal. So there's been some mumbles in D.C. that really the way he would fund it is first and foremost by rolling back the massive Trump tax cuts for the rich. And right there, you save trillions of dollars. And what you'll find is, and it's already happening, you have the deficit scolds, the fake fiscal hawks, who now, all of a sudden, again, they come out of the woodworks and they're like, oh, we don't have the money for such an endeavor. I mean, don't be ridiculous. Don't be a pie-in-the-sky, unicorn, fairy dust character. So silly, a job guarantee. Where are we going to get the money? Now, again, these same people are nowhere to be found when, for example, we wasted $7 trillion in Iraq, which is what it'll cost by 2053 when you add in the interest, because the war is paid for with borrowed money. The $2 trillion spent in Afghanistan, the multi-trillion-dollar tax cuts that we just talked about, the Trump tax cuts, never mind the Bush tax cuts, going back further. The same people that don't bat a fucking eyelash at spending trillions with a T on war are the same people who are like, oh, the money, we care so deeply about fiscal responsibility. No, if you cared about fiscal responsibility, you would have said something about the endless wars which cost trillions of dollars. By the way, I haven't even brought up the multi-trillion-dollar bailout of Wall Street, which again, everybody framed it as like, we must do it because it's a moral responsibility. The system will collapse if we don't bail out the big banks. But when you talk about a moral responsibility and something that's urgently needed, I thought that everybody agrees that jobs are a good thing, right? That's not just Democrats. That's also Republicans who love to pretend like we're the pro-job people. That's who we are. We're in favor of hard work. That's the American way, hard work. And then Bernie comes along and he says, yes, I agree with you. In fact, let's make it so that every American can get a job if they want it and they're willing to work. All of a sudden, The jobs people are like, but what? Oh no, that's a terrible idea. Wait, you want to give people jobs? Gross. Who's pro-job? I'm anti-job. So I'm being a little flippant there because, of course, they would frame it as like, no, we're for jobs, just for private sector jobs. But, of course, the problem with that is if you use that approach, then you're always going to have an unemployment rate that, keeps millions of people out of work. Always. Because that's just the nature of the system. So you have to ameliorate the failures of the free market system and incorporate a decent amount of socialism. And what Bernie Sanders is doing is saying, no, seriously, let's actually redress the grievances of working people and redress the grievances of the people who are unemployed and left behind. And in the process, again, talking about all fruitful ideas like, hey, we could do infrastructure projects, we could do things for education and things of that nature. So, I mean, it's a great idea. And, some people are saying, hey, but what about like universal basic income, for example? And is there a dichotomy between universal basic income or a job guarantee? And if so, then which path do we go down? And now people are starting to ask a bunch of questions that to this point were just kind of absent because those policies were not even in the realm of what was considered reasonable. But I'm not even necessarily sure there is a dichotomy there. I think, everybody knows my mixed take on UBI. So, I'm not a cheerleader necessarily for that policy idea, but I don't think it's like unworkable to have UBI, which is the idea behind that is like Social Security for everybody, basically, to have that and a job guarantee. But again, what's good about this is even if, let's say, some people listening right now are like, I don't know, I'm skeptical, that seems a little too radical or whatever. Okay, but even if I grant you that point, the reality is the Overton window is being shifted to the left here. So now if you have everybody on the Democratic side, and of course it's not everybody, but if you have some people on the Democratic side talking about a job guarantee now, well, then when, you trot out the idea of just a living wage the next time the Democrats have power, all of a sudden a living wage seems as banal and vanilla as it is. Like, oh, you work full time, you should make enough money to live. Yeah, duh. But the paradigm that we were functioning under before was like that is considered the left fringe. Like just saying, hey, if you work full time, you should make enough money to survive. That was considered like, ooh, look at you, pinko. But that doesn't reflect the reality of the opinions of the American people. And now, because of people like Bernie, you're shifting that Overton window to the left. And it's basically like he's dragging Washington to be more accountable to the people. And by proposing this radical legislation that, in my opinion, is not really so radical and is kind of centrist and moderate when you look at what the American people actually want and you ask them their opinion and you check out the polling data. So I think this is great. And, there are corporate Democrats who are starting to learn now, like, oh, okay, the Hillary Clinton model and the Obama model even of like, let me try to be more centrist to win the election, that's dead and gone. And even though there are corporate Democrats who, in their heart of hearts, don't agree with those left-wing policies, it really does speak volumes that they feel like they have to push those policies in order to get elected. Because that shows that the Democratic strategist class is losing their effectiveness. Because that was always their move. You hire Democratic strategists in Washington, and their answer is always the same. Oh, no, you have to run further to the right and be more corporatist and agree with the Republicans more in order to be taken seriously. And then the Democrats have done that for decades, and they keep getting their fucking clocks cleaned. And then, make no mistake about it, that's still, that's still what the Democratic strategists are saying. But now you have people like Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand, who are corporate Democrats, don't get it twisted. They're like, yeah, no, you guys are fucking wrong. Obviously, look at where all the energy is in the party. All the energy is on the left-wing base. All the energy are the people who are saying, hey, we believe in social democracy, and either you push for these policies or we don't give a fuck about you. We don't like neoliberalism. So there's yet another example of a step in the right direction. The only thing about this that's a little bit sad is that, listen, you get the sense that not in Bernie's case, to be fair, but obviously like Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, people like that, Kamala Harris, like you get the sense that they're really pushing this stuff because they know that right now you have Republicans control everything. So it's like, well, we're not going to get it into place anyway. So yeah, let's act like we're the most populist left people in the fucking world. But then when push comes to shove and you actually have a supermajority, what are you going to do then? And that's when, I have my reservations about the corporate Democrats because their record to this point shows, yeah, we'll just abandon you when the going gets tough. Now, is that a fair analysis? I think it is at this point based on the evidence that we have to this point. But hey, if when all is said and done, they decide, like, no, I actually understand now I'm for these policies or else, and then they actually vote for them, I don't care. Like, I don't care if their motivation is, I'm scared that I'm going to get kicked out of office, so I have to vote for these policies, which are the right policies. I don't care if that's the driving force, as long as they vote for the policies. So we have to reserve judgment from here on out and just keep an eye on their voting record like a hawk, because I don't care about their rhetoric. I don't care about which bandwagon they're hopping on. I care about what they actually do. And if you have this giant leftward shift in the party, that's only exactly what we've been asking for and begging for all along. And let's just hope that people like Bernie can finally get through the thick heads of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and most of Democratic leadership. Because, yes, you do have some people with better instincts, like Kirsten Gillibrand, like Elizabeth Warren, like Bernie Sanders. But the leadership of the Democratic Party, Schumer, Pelosi, and the majority of the elected Democrats, they still don't understand this lesson. They're probably looking at Bernie like he's got 8 heads when he proposes something like this. Like, what are you doing? That's crazy. And I don't think you could teach those old dogs new tricks, Schumer and Pelosi and the rest of them. But hey, I'm happy the Overton window is shifting to the left. Only good can come of that.